Okay, so Ayin Beis, page Tov Tes, Ayin Beis. Mahalti mitten. What was he talking about? Okay, he's talking about the mamutza. The context is he's talking about the mamutza between the Meitzel and the Netzalim, Kesser. But he asked the question a while back that how could a mamutza has to have a piece of both, so to speak, like a meturgaman, like a translator, has to speak both languages. But Atik never comes down to the Netzalim. Arich never goes up to the Meitzel. So this is it just carries over the question, how could it be a real mamutza? So he answered that the Nekuda, you need something that, so to speak, travels at both extremes. And he said that's Chochmas Timah. Chochmas Timah is Chochma of Arich, and which is Eila, and goes up to Atik, and also is part of Arich, and is therefore Reisham Netzalim. And to understand that, he explained that a Chochma, first he started with Chochma Gluya. The Chochma has two elements, two dimensions that are opposites. There's Chochma, the Keicha, flaw of Chochma. When a person is able to conceive and think of something that is very dakazdik, something very edel, refined, and then this Chochma as it comes down to, in Levushim and explained, and down to lower levels. And basically both are Talis Abazeh. They're both interdependent, because the lower you want to go, the deeper you have to go. So Be'ela Chochma has these both elements. And then he went back now to Chochmas Timah, then he also has these two elements. I mean, it's a big arichas here. He still hasn't finished it, but the point is that he wants to make clear, which apparently is where the Rabbi Rashab is going, is that Aid, through learning Torah and using Chochma, has an ability to connect to a place that's beyond everything, the Likus that's higher than the whole Salshlus, Atik in other words, and the Meitzel, but also on our terms, because we have Seichel. In other words, Seichel is a bracha from the Eibusher that gave us an ability that an animal doesn't have. Animals be midas, emotions. The animal cannot dream or think. It could learn. A person, a human being, can learn, and that mind can go into places that are far, far beyond. As I say, it didn't firaise, but that's just to put things into context. So we're up to right now is he was talking about that a chochma istimah. There's also these two elements. In Eish Reish, talked about Pi Kabbalah. He spoke about the two levels of Atik. Chetzenius Atik is in the Gilgelta, in the skull. Makiv, that was Eish Reish, and Chochmas Timah is a keli, the Meichin to Meichin, the Atik Kadisha, the Primus Atik. And he began with an example from Einig, that pleasure, Atik is pleasure, that there's two types of pleasure. There's a pleasure that you get from someone, your Ratzon being fulfilled, even a Ratzon that has no Tam V'das, like the Ratzon of a father wanting to be with his son. And then there's a second Einig connected to Chochmah, like he brings up Rabbi, the pleasure of learning something new. And he explained the difference is one is Makiv, one is Pnimi. The first one is Makiv. The pleasure of someone who has a Ratzon Atzmi, a real Ratzon for something, is just a reward, so to speak. It's the fulfillment of that Ratzon, but it doesn't add anything. It doesn't make the Ratzon weaker or stronger. Whereas the pleasure in learning something new adds chayis. You learn differently. Whereas an old thing, something that's already that you're used to, you just don't learn with the same type of chayis. So in other words, something connected to Meichen is a much more primistic pleasure than just the pleasure connected to the fulfillment of the Ratzon. That was Eish Reish. And Eish Reish Aleph, which was learned yesterday, he goes into the whole thing about Ratzon and Einig. He's starting to explain it better, that Ratzon and Einig are two, even Ratzon is a Ratzon Atzmi, and from there the Rabbi Rashab went, I don't know if you can say it's tangential, but he went to whole arichas, understanding the Zechrenis, the connection, the kashus between the Shamis Yisrael, the Ratzon, just like it is between a Ratzon Av and Ben, that the Av is connected to the Ben, and the Ben to the Av, the same thing as Lamaila, that the Eibush has a Ratzon Atzmi connected to the Shamis Yisrael and Faket, both ways. And he went to whole arichas of what the Zechrenis are, Rosh Hashanah, when we say the Zechrenis, the pratim, all the pratim, the Zechrenis of Noach and the Ovis and Moshe and then the Krisis Bris. The difference between Zechrenis is basically to awaken that Hiskashrus Atzmi between Eden and the Eibishter. That was essentially the thrust. But it's a very fascinating pedic because if you have an Abir and all the Zechrenis of Rosh Hashanah, you have it here. Himchosha went through literally almost every one of the psukim that we say in the Psukah Zechrenis. Remember, this is a mimer from Shabbos Shuvah. So it's appropriate for the time, coming from Rosh Hashanah. And that's where we're up to. So let's read the Kitzur on page Tov Tes, and we'll go on to Ayin Beis, okay? V'ikra tam yesh leimer, this is the Kitzur on Tov Tes. V'ikra tam yesh leimer, d'hinei rotznu atzmi bli siba tam v'enig. The ikra tam, in other words, that rotzen, is connected to tainug, because rotzen is an atzmi, rotzen is an essential thing. Bli siba tam v'enig. Real rotzen is something that you just want something, like a father of Av and a Ben, doesn't have to have a tam, seichel, doesn't have to have pleasure. It's how it is, biologically, whatever, but etzem, a person has a kesher with his son. Like, and the Maila, the etzem, the Eibishter has his kashers with Bnei Yisrael, with Neshamas Yisrael, no matter what, no matter how they behave and so on. The connection is there. Sometimes it could be hidden or concealed, but nothing changes it. This is all the kitzur of this perek. Like the Rotzen Atzmi of Av and Ben, as he said both ways, this is the Rotzen Atzmi, and the same thing Rotzen Atzmi, Rotzen Atzmi, the Eibishter, that he wants Neshama Yisrael, Mitzad Atzmi. Those Mitzad, not Mitzad Tam or Einig. V'zeh inyan ha-zechrein is Rosh Hashanah, al klos ha-yishtalshlus, al dei ha-zikaron ben Neshama Yisrael, she'intchilas Masecha. So by reminding Tchilas Masecha, Zeyim Tchilas Masecha, that's when Odom Rishon, the Neshama Yisrael, began. Through that is the Zikaron of the Yom Rishon, as he explained, the Zikaron of Kol Seder Shtalshlus. So the whole world is renewed by the Eibishter, where the whole world is not Tefer Smokim, through reminding about the Kavanah, which is the Neshama Yisrael. V'hu b'chin Zikaron Pnimi, Shayizehu Zikaron Chitzeni. The Zikaron Pnimi is Neshama Yisrael, that's the Ikad, the Pnimi. And through that, you come to the Zikaron Chitzeni, that you should also remember the ganze Welt and the whole platform of the world. Like a Krisis Bris, which is Iskashas Pnimi between two things. Krisis Bris, the Avram, al Teira Mitzvus, and Moshe al Tshuva. Krisis Bris, with Avram was on Teira Mitzvus, and Moshe was on Tshuva. V'gam im Yisrachku, even if these two parts get distant from one another, and that Yichuk is especially, ultimately, because the Remus Atzmus is so far and distant from us. And then the Neshamas come around the Mata, which is the other extreme, B'frat ha'idei chet, as he said, when Golas, and through a chet, then it's the Hefsek, the Yichuk is even more distant. And that's why you need the Zikaron Bris Pnimi. That's why you have to mention and remind the Eibishter that Afilu Mechitza Shal Bazla Einem Afsekas B'neim, as he brought. So the Zikaron just reawakens that connection that became so concealed. U'kamoi b'shefer b'tzayka d'tshuva u'bameh b'shefer. I'm sorry, Zechrein u'bameh b'shefer, like the Gemara says, b'tzayka d'tshuva, and how through the tzayka, the cry out of tshuva. V'raya ma'ateirim zikaron d'neyach shaloi ha'yateirim mitzvus adayin, and Zarai, and he brings Zarai that's the zikaron of Noach, and that says as Noach is a lashon Noach is a chart Noach is a hafta, I think. Noach b'hafta, b'hav is a charta. That's an ava atzmis, because by Noach there wasn't Teira mitzvus yet. So you have to say that the zikaron is because of the etzem mitzvus of him. Etzem mitzvus of the Neshamas Yisrael. That's what he says earlier. Then it was a korna overs b'tzis mitzayim v'chein rotzen atzmi the Neshamas Yisrael b'elakus. And the same thing's faket that the Neshamas have a rotzen atzmi telakus. They always want to be connected. The pnimius. Which is the reason that we have Mesiras Nefesh. Even you see Mesiras Nefesh, and clearly Mesiras Nefesh has no pleasure. And the same thing with chukim of the mitzvahs. So all this is a rotzen atzmi. Bottom line is that rotzen is a rotzen atzmi that's higher than tam v'das and higher than einig. Because, and when Eid was a Mesiras Nefesh, as he said, there's no pleasure in that. If there was pleasure, then he wouldn't go. If Seichel is Mechayiv, Seichel is not Mechayiv Mesiras Nefesh b'Peil Mamish. It's not up in Seichel. besides just a connection that you just do what you have to do. So now Ayin Beis. He's going further now. Not only is Ratzon, not al pi tam v'das, and not al pi enig, but it's a hypech poshet. The enig hu behelam benefesh v'Ratzon hu bizgalas dafke. So he's going now a deeper thing into Ratzon. Remember, all this is leading up to. He's going to go. This is Ratzon, which is arich. He's going to go there. The Meichin, on the other hand, and Einig have a connection, a deep connection. So Ratzon does not. That's how he began, at least. So that's where we're up to in the context. So the Nekudas Einig is behelam, is hidden in the nefesh, the spirit, and Ratzon is bizgalus. I'm going to explain what that means. The Ratzon Lashon merutza. Ratzon is from Lashon merutza. Merutza means, in this case, it means something that's like the Rotz, Lashon.
Running?
Well, you could say Merutza is also a person who's pleased. Merutza, a person who's pleased. I don't think that's what it means. It means Merutza here, it's from Lashon like extending. Shehu is galus v'amshachas hanefesh. U'kamoi hayesh es nafshecha, shehu is galus hanefesh, u'merutzase le'eze davar. Merutzase here is that it's merutza, it's drawn to something. Yeah. Lashon merutza, Lashon being drawn to. And drawing, when something's drawn to someone, it's a galus thing. You're drawn to something, so it's very clear. You want a cup of tea. So your ratzon is drawn to something. It's very revealed. So again, Lashon merutza shu is galus v'amshachas hanefesh, is the revealing and the extension of amshachas hanefesh, the extension of the nefesh. U'kamoi hayesh es nafshecha. You know where that pasuk comes from? Remember hayesh es nafshecha. Okay, bottom line is that the nafshecha is there used in Lashon of Ratzon. So is galus hanefesh u'merutzase le'eze davar. Is the revelation of the nefesh u'merutzase, and it's being drawn to something, to any specific thing, it's something. V'zeu sha'Ratzon b'chinas yiseidus dafke, and that's why Ratzon is in a level of yiseidus. It's like has to be awake. It's awakening. She'meseider be'eze Ratzon shuyin his galus. That he has a Ratzon. In other words, to say that somebody wants something and it's hidden doesn't make sense. Pleasure, you could have pleasure even though you don't feel it. But what does it mean? If you don't want it, either you want it or you don't want it. To say you really want it, but it's hidden somewhere, then it's not Ratzon yet. Then it's just something in your psyche, in your spirit. So Ratzon when you say Ratzon, I want something, as soon as you say I want, you're already saying that you're extending yourself to it. That's basically what he's saying here. And the reason for this is because Ratzon is the Chetzenis HaNefesh, not the Primis HaNefesh. It's the outer surface level of the Nefesh. The Ima Yeshu Atzmi, even though it's an Atzmi, like we said before, it's an atzmi in the sense that it doesn't have any tam or einig, and it's just there all the time. So even though it's an atzmi, it's about the chetzenis of atzmus. In other words, you could have something that's pnimius, but it's not atzmus. It's not a part of the etzem. It's a pnimius thing, but it's not part of the etzem. This is a chetzenis, so it's a level of his galus of the etzem, not the primis of the etzem. Let's go on and see. Maybe he'll explain it more. If not, we have to go analyze this a little deeper. What's tainug on the other hand? Tainug hu dafke behelam b'nefesh. Tainug on the other hand is dafke concealed. She'enu b'chinas merutza. This is not a level of being pleased or being drawn to something. Ki'im masha misanig ba'atzmi. It's only v'sadat alein in zich, a certain pleasure for something. So you could be sitting alone, nothing is with you, and you still have pleasure. Ratzon, on the other hand, you can't have without something that you want. It needs an object. Whereas Tainug, a person have Mesanig Ba'atzmi. V'hainu Mashem Mesanig Be'ezu Dover Ein Zeh B'chinas Merutza. And when you have pleasure from something, it's not B'chinas Merutza that you have to necessarily go from it. Ki Mashem Mesanig Ba'atzmi, you could be by yourself and still have pleasure from it. In other words, let's say, going back to Av Ben. The father has Av and Ben, there's a rotzen of a father and son. So rotzen is only shaykh if you're doing something about it. You can't just do it. You could sit alone and not have your son there and still have pleasure from the idea that you have a son and you have a connection with him. But when you say a rotzen to your son, meaning there has to be something, I want him here now, I want to have some relationship. So rotzen immediately is basically is wanting something and having to get it fulfilled. And Tainug doesn't need to get it fulfilled. Tainug is just the fact that you have pleasure from something out there. That's Papashas what he's saying here. Well, El Pedekuf Tzadik Beis Nizboyesh Tainug Hu Bizgalus. Earlier we learned in Pedekuf Tzadik Beis that Tainug is revealed. How does he say here that it's hidden? Hainu liyeser keich naila biyeser hu b'chinas b'lei keli. That Tainug is revealed. What do we learn there? That it's, being that such a high kayach, it doesn't have a keli. It's like an eir on a keli. Pleasure is an eir on a keli. Al kain kishemizanik be'ezer davar nida v'nigla boy hatainug shemizanik. That's why when a person has pleasure in something, it's revealed within him the tainug, the pleasure that he's enjoying. U'misalim al yedei chochma dafka. And it's concealed through chochma dafka. When you start thinking about it, the yeseb b'chinas einig be'etzem husei, or b'chinas chochma v'seichel, k'moshe is bar. He's basically by warning. He's here in Ayin Beis, the Rabbi is very thorough. So he warns all the sides and angles. Let's say he didn't finish it, but he's just saying that we learned earlier contradiction to what it says here. Here it says Tainug is behelam. We learned earlier that Tainug is revealed. And it's revealed in a way, it's not a keli, but it's still some type of it's revealed. And Chochmah conceals it. In other words, when a person starts thinking about it, it's like always, Seichel conceals an atzmizdika thing. You start thinking about something, it's not the same pleasure as when the pleasure is there without thought. The pleasure, just you have pleasure. When you start rationalizing, it's already concealed. Anyway, he says, Kamoshi's bar, he's going to explain that later. That's the answer. Even what we said earlier, that Tainug is begili, it's not merutza klal. That Tainug hu ba'atzmi action nida eirei. In other words,
it comes out.
It's a little dakazdik here. The Tainug, it's like rotzen reaches to something. It's a whole muhus is a drive to that extends itself to get something, whatever the thing is. Tainug is here. Basically, as you read it more, it seems like it's like emotional, almost like Tainug is not going somewhere. It's you're here, and you have pleasure from something. You don't need to go for it. You're not driven necessarily to get it. Rotzen is the drive to get it. In other words, a Tainug can make a rotzen, can create a rotzen to go get it. But rotzen is like sending a shliach to get it, and Tainug is just the pleasure that you have from it. So he's saying Tainug is not Beis because it's within yourself. We learned earlier Tainug is Beis. He's saying it's His Galus only in the sense that it's revealed within you. You feel it. But not like Merutza, His Galus as outside of you, where others see it, and others see it. I'm just thinking of emotional. So let's say someone has a very deep Tainug for something.
He's troubled.
I don't want to use the guy. I don't think he's going on that level. But whatever it may be, so he could be there, have it. No one knows that he has it. But then he sends a shliach, or he does something to go get it. That's already, it's coming into a rotzen, and the rotzen is going, merutza is going to get it. So it's not the Tainug is completely concealed. He knows he has it, but no one else does. In other words, Tainug does not have to go outside of itself to be fulfilled. The rotzen has to go outside of itself to be fulfilled. That's the bottom line. It doesn't mean you get everything you want, but the etzem inyan of rotzen is not complete if it's not drawn or driven to get something. And Tainug is complete even if you don't get it, in a sense. Like a Tainug atzmi. The ikra tainug shemesanik be'etzem uhusei mamish lei b'bchinas hagiluyim shaloi. Gam lei b'bchinas harim shaloi. And ikra tainug, meaning the main pleasure, is when you hasani be'etzem uhusei mamish. And when you pleasure be'etzem of the person, the etzem of your etzem, without any giluyim, a feeling not reim mushalei. Not even the gilui of feeling that you're on a higher level. I want to just say this, it's a very important point here. You know, these Inyanim Chassidus are very deeply psychological. It's poshet dissecting, you know, it's not, I'm saying this because, you know, learn Shulchan Aruch, for example, everybody can relate to Shulchan Aruch. It's mechanics. Hilchos Shabbos is what you do, the Lamates Malachas as a Davidman, you know, here's Hilchos Kashrus, Hilchos Tefillin, Hilchos Tzitzis. Everything's very technical. So maybe a lot of information, and you know, you have to, if you know all the reasons behind it, the Gemara and everything, it's a ganze Ge'enis, but you're not forced to go to another type of thinking. It's just a matter of finding out what the halachas are, all the stiris, the dayas, and then coming to what's that halach, you know, the maskana, etc. I mean, look, Siddur. I mean, I remember I discovered this, and this is something that they don't tell you in yeshiva, Pashut. It's a different way of thinking. It's not, we can't learn this like you learn Shulchan Aruch. I remember when we learned Tanya started learning Tanya the first time, I started realizing everybody knows that Tzadi Bein Rosha, and Nefesh Lukis, Nefesh Abamas, Keches, and Levushim, and Avamus Teres, and Avadis. Everyone knows the technical. They ask somebody, can you tell me what this means exactly? Like, you know, when's the last time you met a Beinani or a Tzaddik? You know, can you explain it to me? It's all abstract things. So why is the Alter Rebbe teaching it to us? I mean, for what reason? So we're so trained to think in terms of facts. Chassidus is not about facts. I don't mean to say it's not facts. It's not about tangible facts on the ground. Like, you know, you want to know, tefillin, you take an animal, you shecht it, you use the skin, you tan it, and you make the skin into cloth, you write on it, and it becomes a period tefillin. There's a process. In Chassidus, everything is abstract. So I'm only saying because we're learning these ideas, it's critical, it has a different mindset. And so even if a person doesn't get it all, the fact that you have to think differently is Echen Aveda. Because this is a completely different type of thinking. No, I'm saying it not just to you, I'm saying it to all of us. Because you don't think like this. You see, you go outside the steps, you think, how do I walk down steps? You don't think about the abstraction of it. This is very abstract in a certain way. The truth is...
Why use the word abstract? I think it's very real life.
No question about it. But it's not what we're accustomed to. You know, brushing your teeth, you could teach somebody. When someone's saying, explain to me the inner tainug with the host, we don't think like that because we don't have aces. How do you explain my deepest pleasure inside of me? You know, kedusha. I'm not machshav. How do you explain it? It's not so simple to find aces. But Chassidus is articulating something that was once not articulated, things that you didn't talk about. You know. How many things does a person carry? Talked about your father yesterday. How many things does he have inside of him he's never said to anybody? Not because of a secret. It's just as a hanocha. You don't talk about certain things, or we don't even have words to talk about it. I'm just saying it because, you know, learning this, you have to have this bavarnish. If the Push should say, there's a different way of thinking. This is how you think about Elikus. This is why Chassidus is Chassidus, it's not Nigla. It's not just... one is they're different. They're not just two different dimensions in Torah. They're two different mindsets. It's like the difference between someone telling you that this is a table and someone telling you what is the table made of. As soon as you what made of, like you know, let's talk about this table is made of. We know there's in wood, if it's wood, whatever. There's molecules. In molecules, there are atoms. In atoms, there's subatomic particles. These are things no one has ever seen, but we know it's there. I mean, some things you could see under a microscope, some things not. Someone says, what's inside this bulb? A little child says. And you'll say, well, inside the bulb, there's energy. What's energy? It's not really visible, but energy comes through electricity. But what's electricity? Where does that come from? You say, well, electricity, most people don't even know where to go from there. It's some force that when you harness it, it creates power. So someone could understand water. A little water is nothing, but you put a lot of water creates a lot of energy. It can blow down, so even explaining energy, which every one of us understands, is a poshut. What is energy exactly? What is energy? It's an invisible force, but it's definitely not something you can hold on to. Then I think I said that mashal that one of the physicists once said. It's just an excellent mashal to see how little we know. So they said, how do you come to all these all these conclusions? Like, here's a computer here. There's a microchip, which is what's the size of a microchip today? A hair of a person.
Nanos.
You can't even see it. In it, there's the power to do all these things that we do. We just press buttons. We have no idea what's going on. We just press the buttons. Those buttons are generating electrical impulses. And then you have pictures on your... Tell me even how a television works. 1,000,000 miles away, somebody's doing something, and suddenly you see it on the screen almost simultaneously. Whatever, it takes a few minutes delay. What's going on exactly? Is that a man inside the box? I don't even know if even scientists can't really explain. They just know there's a way of transmitting an image through waves. Or the same thing with sound. So I'm just pointing out that it's a whole other way of thinking when you start thinking like that. So he gave the analogy of a fisherman that spread a net across all the seas, and he picked up all the different types of fish. And then he came to Grace Maskana. He was brilliant. He wrote, he documented the different colors, shapes, and sizes, millions of fish. And then he wrote, his Maskana, his big conclusion was, there are no fish in the sea that are shorter than a ½ inch long. So he wrote this paper. His little son says to him, let me see the net. He looks at the net. The net has spaces of a ½ inch spaces. So all the fish smaller than a ½ inch fell back into the water. So his maskana is true, but he should have just added one thing, that when you use a net with ½ inch spaces, you're not going to catch fish that are shorter than ½ inch long. You don't need to be a scientist. So in other words, what he point was, you have to qualify your tools. Someone will say, I don't see love. There's no such thing. I don't see it with my eyes. Well, the same thing. I don't see God. I don't see this, us. A minute, what are eyes? Eyes are just tools. Why don't you say, with my eyes I don't see love? Yes, you need other tools. There are things that you can't see with your eyes. Eyes are like a net. There's some things you can see with your eyes, some things you need a telescope or microscope, and some things you need even bigger instruments. Some things no instrument in the world will ever see it. But it says there, it says MS as a. So then you already get into a whole other world. I call it abstraction only because on our level, it's, you talk to somebody that say, now you're talking to me things that are not, not that I don't get. Talk to me, tachlis, per dollar, things I can measure, I can touch. That's what I relate to. The truth is, what makes us tick is only that. What makes you really tick is there's nothing tangible. What makes a person tick? What's the difference? I mean, I don't want to say not a grub, but I was going to say a morbid example. I remember my father, 6 years ago, passed away yesterday. I remember exactly. It was 5:17. I looked at the clock. I knew I'll never forget that moment. And I saw his body, like a second apart. And you say to yourself, so what changed? What changed? Here's the same body, the same person, but there's no chayes. It's a piece of it's a body on a neshama. And it's impossible to understand what changed really. It's some force. That's not just a change. It's not like you added a little smile. The whole muchus changed. Everything is different. So something leaves, and you have exactly everything in place, but you don't have the chayes. You don't have the neshama. I mean, I'm talking, so you see clearly there's a whole world. What does that neshama look like? And something we can't relate to because we never see it. You only see it as it manifests inside of a body. You see a body go through motions. So then Chassidus comes and says, okay, you know what? We're going to explore what this neshama is like. There's nefesh, ruach, neshama, chay, yechide. There's tainug, rotz, and keiches. You're going into a whole journey into a place that nobody ever goes. So the reason I'm saying, because as I'm reading this, I see this is like the Rebbe Rashab, the Rabbeim are experts in that world. They're doctors, soul doctors. So Zay Zen. By us, even with an X-ray, we can't really see it clearly. And it's very tough, especially Ayin Beis is the tifs to hemshech. I just want to say it because you can get. I'm frankly overwhelmed by this. Anyway, I just felt there's this big disclaimer here. Not disclaimer. I mean, it's negate to verstehen the inyanim. So I think if you really want to learn this properly, you probably have to first challenge your whole mindset. Kinderlech and Avtrachten andere Efen and Ganzen. You have to look differently. It's just a different way of looking. You look at everything in a whole.
Could I just? Go
ahead. Yeah.
I could just add to that. You said before about seeing things that we don't see. The truth is that even things that we do see, it's based on abstraction and calculation. For example, the fact that we see 3D is only because we see two to the images
Right.
from different eyes,
Yeah.
and we have perception of depth. Otherwise, we wouldn't have perception of
A
depth.
person that sees with one eye.
He can't see depth. If he's born that way, he will never see depth. He won't be able to walk. He won't be able to drive a car.
If he's born with one eye.
Yeah, he won't be able to drive a car. He won't be able to walk up steps properly.
So, okay, you're saying is everything is measured based on the tools that we.
No, we take two images and we merge them together
I
and get a
understand.
third image, which has never existed. It only exists in our mind.
You got it.
And
I
the fact
understand.
is that we can't see 3D. We only see 2D.
I understand exactly what you're saying.
And by the way, the same thing is by listening. By hearing, we don't hear in stereo. We hear two separate sounds and we merge them together.
I see with 2D, with 3D now. You think because I was born?
No, because your brain is already programmed and is used to it, so you can translate
Okay,
it.
good,
to
very good.
virtual 3D.
But the bottom line is, let's get back to this. The bottom line is like this: that the
I know, I just want to say something.
I got it, I understand.
No, so I'm saying, so today we have, and as a dogma, we have the soldiers wear night goggles. So it used to be night goggles used a certain light from the stars. Today they use infrared. So they can see, even if it's a pitch dark room and there's no one in the room, there's no light whatsoever.
okay,
So they get three different perspectives. They see the light and they see it based on the heat. So these are all different dimensions that you could put together a picture, and they see it translated in an image, so they can actually walk in the dark and see it. So the same thing here.
yeah, yeah.
He's
Depending
saying
what,
cooling out. In other words, everything that even seems normal.
even the physical world, we use the whole time calculations to be able to
For
figure
sure,
out.
for sure, for sure. They're not gonna know me. Anyway, Bekitzer, what he's saying here now is that in the nefesh of a person, the way we work right now, the things we want, the things we desire, the things we have pleasure in, he's making a key distinction between Rotzen and Tainug. Essentially, it appears that Rotzen Melosha Marutza. How would you translate Marutza? Not nicht zufrieden mit sich, nicht pleased.
Melashon Ritza.
It looks like it. Melosha who's galus am shachas nefesh. Hayesh es nafshecha. The third line in Ayin Beis. Second, third line.
Gravitation.
Yeah, gravity.
Drawn to something. Oh yeah, okay. So Marutza, fine. So Rotzen Etzem Husei is a galus thing because it's drawn. As soon as something is drawn, you're ready. You want something.
Close.
Yeah. Mashenk and Tainug is the opposite, is within himself. Now I just realized something. The Rebbe would always say by the Ushpizin that the Baal Shem Tov is Atik, Magid is Arich, Alter Rebbe is Chachme, and so on, Mittel Rebbe is Bina. So, and he once spoke about this a few times, that the difference between Baal Shem Tov and Magid was the Baal Shem Tov stated, that's actually the opposite way. It's the opposite. No, this stimmt nicht. Okay, let's strike that. Now, let me say what I was going to say. He's saying the Baal Shem Tov used to travel everywhere, and the Maggid stayed in his place. So that stimmt with Tainug and Rotzen. But Sefaka, Tainug stays in his place, and Arich goes around. Okay, so
and square.
Okay.
Before, we said
Yeah.
Tainug could also be from outside.
yeah, but okay, there's also his
Remember that
scholars.
Atik is the one that's Melashon HaTaka.
I talk him Malcolm, but I talk also from removed. Okay, fine. But anyway, so Bekitzer, what he just finished saying, what we just finished reading here, is that Tainug has his galus, but it's not his galus outside of you. It's his galus within you. You have pleasure within yourself. Akshanira ere, and Ikra Tainug is mamash etzem husay without any giluyim, not even reimam mushalei. Oh, we have another Yiddish Shabbat. Zufrieden von sich allein.
Content.
Zufrieden von sich allein. Der Herr ist zufrieden mit sich. Meisha. That's what he's talking about now. Zufrieden von sich allein. That not even that. Tainug is not even zufrieden von sich allein. Shemesanig be'etzem of leib b'chinas giluim shalei, gam leib b'chinas hareim shalei. Zufrieden von sich allein. So even that, when a person sits and says, you're happy with yourself, whatever reason, that too is not emtzaim. Shezeh ha'eneg ba'etzem leib b'mashu. Shezeh ha'eneg ba'etzem leib b'mashu hu ha'etzem. This is the pleasure in the etzem, not in the fact that you are the etzem. In other words, this is an interesting line here. In other words, there's two things. Pleasure, you can have pleasure and you're aware of it. Let's say you have a deep pleasure of something. You wake up this morning, Meidan in Lefanecha, the Eibishter created you, the Atzmus Alein put you here on earth. You don't know if he did everybody else on earth, but let's make believe that you're the only person right now. So he chose you, so that's great, and you have deep pleasure. So you can have two types. There's pleasure be'etzem, that you're not even aware of, which is what he's talking about. There's a pleasure in your etzem, that you're aware of it. So he's saying real pleasure is not even awareness of, that's what he's saying. It's nicht zufrieden von sich allein that you know that I'm special and so on. We're not talking about gaiva now, by the way. We're just talking about the pleasure. But it's the pleasure of the etzem, not the pleasure of the etzem knowing that it's the etzem. In other words, that's what I'm saying. Not that you're conscious of that you're the etzem. In other words, if you were thinking about your rememus, that you're special, that's already not etzem einik. That's already a step of gili. I'll give you an example. I always use this example. I don't know if it fits mamash here, but it's definitely a good example. You ever involved in a project, mamash immersed in it, and you don't even realize the time change, what the time it is, that you're hungry or anything. You're in the zone. You're as connected with what you're doing. Then suddenly someone says to you, "You know what? It's this time." Suddenly you're aware that you're so immersed. You know, the real immersion is not even aware that you're there. You're just there. This is obviously the deepest type of experience. It's not like there's two things. There's you and the experience. You become one with the experience. The Rabbi says this, like a fish in water, is not aware that it's in water. It's a natural place. You know, as soon as you are conscious of something, there's a raya that you already have duality. There's you, there's the object, and there's the subject. You know, like I'll say, "Oh, I have pleasure now." Oh, I have, what's this? You're already saying there's a me, there's an I, and there's your experience. A real experience is when you're completely there and you don't even feel it. I'll give you another example. Until the second that I'm going to say this line, what is your left foot doing? You weren't thinking about it. Now that you think about it, now it was still there, but chayis is such a thing that you don't feel that it's there. Like when someone asks you, what does it feel like to be healthy? If you say anything, you need a doctor. Because it's healthy, it's not supposed to feel like anything. It's who you are. What does it feel like to be alive? Someone explains. What does it feel like to be alive? I'm not talking about to be excited. Just to be alive. What does it mean to be? The answer is it doesn't feel like anything. It just feels right. You know, everything seems right. If God forbid you feel something, it's a shena siman as. So I'm trying to say is real experiences are you and the experience become one. It's not like I'm experiencing this. I put my hand in water, my hand got wet. In other words, life is a noun. Real experience is a noun, not a verb. It's a state of being, not an action. An action is already a sign that you're going out of your etzem. The etzem does not have to go outside of itself to be. Where everything in this world is, we go out to get something. Where you feel it, I feel it, I express. That's what he's saying is that tainug is such an atzmi. It's just pleasure without even having to define it. Does it make sense what I'm saying? You want some more examples? Huh? Yeah, what?
Good. No,
No, I'm asking everybody.
You're not explaining tainug. You're explaining the fact that it's there and not about it.
Right. Well, he's saying tainug is. He says ikra tainug shemisanig be'etzem uhuse mamish, enig be'etzem.
Every person has it naturally.
Yeah, what I'm really explaining is the difference between a Hizgalazdik experience and something that's not an Atzmizdik experience. But he's going deeper here, that even an Atzmizdik experience is not that your pleasure from Shahua Etzem, but it's the pleasure of the Etzem. That's what it is. It's basically, what I wanted to really describe is a state where the subject and the object, meaning you, the person and the object that you want are one, with his mamish no distinction. Not even a hergish of it. As a matter of fact, you could argue that when a person is conscious of something, is shein nishgut. A real tzaddik, let's say, a person is really connected, he's not conscious, I'm doing somebody a favor. And even if you don't want an award for it. It comes natural. It's what Teva mentioned. It's just a natural thing and gave weiter. It's not like a whole experience. It's the way it should be. They said, the way to put it is, can a fish get wet? Well, better, can water get wet? No, water is a state of being. Can get wet. We get wet. Dry things get wet. But a thing that be'etzem something is just it. That's it. A human being, you're alive. You don't get alive. You are alive. It becomes so much one that you can't even tell or have to explain in any way. It has essentially no expression. That's really what it comes down to. There are things that have no expression. I'm going to give one more example. I'm also explaining this to myself, by the way. This isn't just Now I want to give an example. I think this is a very good example. I use it, but I think it's very applicable here. When you're asked to speak about, let's say, Narishkeiten, weather, sports, superficial things, people can talk all day. You turn the radio on, meret, onasof. One game that took 2 hours, they can talk about it like for 1,000 hours and then analyze in the season and of the season and trades and so on and so forth. And people buy advertising, so someone's listening, Weather, there's weather channels. I don't know what it is. When they launched the weather channel, everyone thought it won't succeed. Who wants to see weather 24 hours? It's major success. For some crazy reason, their lives are not in control. They want to see the patterns and patterns. Most of these predictions, by us, it's like the alte Idene, if our bones were creaking, you knew it was going to rain. That's all. It was more accurate than all the weather reports. So bottom line is that, but when someone asks you to speak about yourself, tell us a little bit. It's not about your experiences. Because the deeper you go inside of a person, the less words there are. So talk about yourself. You should have to be able to talk on and on and on. Talk about the chesenistic things. You should have very few words. It's not about you. It's about superficial things. So the answer is very simple. That Asia's words are kalim, and kalim like a cup. If there's not a lot of water, there's a lot of cups. When there's a lot of water, when there's too much intensity, too much energy, the containers are too small. Because words are containers. So that's why we create a language. Let's say mzinta nigan. What does a nigan do that words don't do? It's bigger kalim. So you can express something in a nigan you can never express in a speech. You're obsessed, You're like the Satmar with the Zionists. They fit each other. There's their Zionists, and they have to be anti-Zionists, and they fight. There's the Mensch, the ganze Sache ist nicht steht für Smoke. Okay. You're on a war path. Anyway, I got it. Let's soon get to that in a second. So a nigan, what does a nigan do? Like it's called metaphor, a moshel. The containers become larger so you can express more. So the more there is, more intensity there is. Chassidus says, the more eir, veinika keli. The more keli, the veinika eir. Chassidus even gives an example why the head is the smallest part of the body. The head has all the chushim. The eyes, the smell, the ears, the mouth, the brain, the central nervous system. The head is less than a third of the body. So Chassidus says, mer eiris, veinika keli. More echus, less kamus. That's what it says. And so the body, for example, this part is bigger, but only has a few ivorim. And the legs, which have the least, is the half of the body, at least. So the more eir, the veinika keli. So the deeper you go into the nefesh of a person, sometimes a person goes to therapy, whatever. You dig deeper, you see they get quieter and quieter. As the deeper you go, the less words there'll be. Not because of shame, because they're embarrassed. Because even with someone you trust, Asis are too small to express the deepest feelings of a person. So there you have a concept of a kola de leishtame. It says in Zer, it talks about the tkiyas. That the tkiya, the shvarim, and the trua is all these levels until there's a place of kola de leishtame. So when a person cries out, oivei, or laughs, in one laugh, in one oivei, you can have more than a whole book. And someone say, what's in it? They say, I can't explain to you. That oivei, I'm talking about really, comes from years of tzaddus. A person thinks about Golos or thinks about the Holocaust, the early, because you don't have words even to, I don't even have words to express the pain or the joy. Liba de puma legalia. Then there comes a point that you can't even cry. In Rahman al-Islam, they say in psychology, there's a thing when a person's shocked, right away, they can't even cry. As a matter of fact, you obviously these trauma centers, after an accident or something, the people who are trained, the first step is to let people just get through the shock and then get them to cry. I mean, not force them, but get them to be comfortable enough to cry, because if you don't cry early on, later it can be big tzaddas. But with the initial shock, you can't even cry. I mean, again, Rahman al-Islam. Or in good things, a real simcha. You ever marry for a child or something like that? It's unbelievable. There's no words. Someone will say, how was it? You just say, you say, I have no words to express my feelings. This is not stam gizok. This is So in other words, you're going into a place where kelim are not there. That's what he said by Tainug. It's a er on a keli. That's what I began to think like this. So really, the deepest pleasure a person has is in a place where there's no kelim, even to yourself. It's not like you could say, explain to me the pleasure that you have from your children. I'm not talking about they came home and did something. Just the etzem inyan, you have a child, you're able to bench you with a child, you just look at your child, no achievements, nothing. Just etzem inyan. Can you explain it? Yeah, writers and poets can probably write something that expresses. Someone will read it and say, is that all? They'll say, no, it's not all, it's abyssal. The point is that he's going deep into the nefesh. Tainug is the etzem of the etzem. And that's what he's saying here, that it's so deep, it's so not giluyim dik, there's no expression. That's what giluyim mean, expression. I just wanted to give a mushal from our own way we express ourselves. Ultimately, just for the record, Chassidus tries to teach us to express even the inexpressible. It's Sachen that are, when you have special moments, when people sit together in Fabring, or I remember the Rebbe's Fabringens, and there was like a moment when Ken Zen has Agili, you could see right away it was a place of an etzem. Like anyone who was dancing Simchas Torah, the Rebbe, Simchas Torah was not like any other time of the year, or Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur. You saw right away it's given atzmizdik, nisht giluyim, not the same, day-to-day things. Anyway, so bottom line is, this is tainuk shazo enig by etzem loy b'meshahu etzem, dahainu loy b'mayla etzem, kim by etzem atzmei. So it's not even the maila, as I said about Av and Ben. We're not even talking about my son is cute, my daughter is smart, this and that. We're not talking about the maila. We're talking about the etzem etzius of the pleasure you have in that, whatever it is. That's what he says. This is tainug atzmi. The ein ze berotzen, lemer, shereitzu be'atzmi, henu be'etzem uhuse. Rotzen doesn't have this thing. That I will sich. The etzem uhuse. I want myself. There's no such thing. You could have pleasure in that place. But rotzen right away means a rotzen for something. As soon as there's a rotzen for something, you're already talking about something that's outside of the etzem. The gamma sheretzu liyes lichies harizeis pashtus. Even the rotzen that a person has, I want to live. It's already also his pashtus. So that's the difference between rotzen and tainug. The take of a tainug be yesudu, but tainug the irchezu dafke. And now he's going to another level. Take of a tainug. He talked about ikar tainug before. Shemasanik be'etzem, and now he's talking about the take of the intensity of tainug. What's the intensity of a tainug b'yesud? Is the enig of ercheze dafke. V'zel u'fi she'enig u'primis v'atzmas nefesh al kein hu behelam dafke. So the take of tainug is an ercheze.
What does that mean?
I'm just thinking. I know what ercheze is. I'm just thinking in this context. Let's see.
I only know one thing about ercheze that I understand.
Well, we learned it before about ercheze. We learned about ercheze, like the difference between charif and makshe and mosen and the masik.
What is ercheze?
The charif and makshe. Ercheze b'derech klal is coming to a maskana through kashas and halomas, mamatlamai, like the levana. It reflects. It's not direct. Er yosher. Er yosher is it. I'm not sure positive why he's saying it here. I guess it means that take of an erchezed. He doesn't say explain what it is. I think I would leave it for right now because maybe he's going to say something later. I
think when he's saying take of a tainug, he's not saying a higher, deeper level of tainug.
No, intensity of tainug. Intensity.
It is that you see, when you see an intensity of tainug, that's already, in other words, if tainug is be'etzem, so why are you conscious of it? Why are you aware of it? Why is it possible to be aware of it?
Yeah, but what's erchezed? That's the question. I understand. Yeah. Whatever it means.
The erchezed aspect of the tainug.
But what is it? I'm guessing now. I'd rather see. He's probably going to say something. He didn't just hack the line here. It's referring to something. I'm not sure what it is. It's all right. Listen, hey, you can always get back to it. I'd rather hear it from the Rebbe Rashav than from myself.
It's a clank. What's erchezed? You look in the mirror. What do you see? You see your image. You see what's behind you. In other words, you're looking. What you're seeing, you're not in the mirror, but you're seeing an image of light that's reflecting back at you.
Yeah, but he just said that Tainug doesn't need even thinking about anything.
Exactly.
Even
that's
about
what I'm
yourself.
saying. So the Tainug, this that you do have Toikef HaTainug, I am aware of Tainug when it's Toikef HaTainug.
So you're saying it's like someone compliments you? That's the Tainug he's talking about? Like not coming from you, but...
He's talking
No,
about his timing.
no, not when another person is complimenting you. Toikef HaTainug, this, I think what he's saying is, what you feel, it should be something you never feel, that you're never conscious of. How could it be that you are conscious of it?
It could be, yeah.
The Toikef HaTainug that you feel, you're feeling the upclimb of this etzem.
No, but then look at
It's
then look at the Maimar HaMuzga. So why is it Behelim Davka? It's not mashma what you're saying, Kurt.
I would say the Zelafisha in Guprimus Lasses on average. That's why
Behelim
you
Davka.
only can feel the Erchayzer and not the Zach itself.
Okay, I don't know. To be honest, I would have to do a little harder. But I hear what you're saying. And what comes out, already expression, is only ha'ara, not the etzem of einig. So einig is an atzmizdika thing, and he added something about a chezer here.
Okay, and we don't know yet exactly what
Yeah, we may never know. Exactly. But David is saying, I hear what you're saying. I have to think about it to see also the context. I'm sure he's going to say something, and probably... By the way, it's 8 o'clock if anybody has to leave, so...
I have to leave, but I came late, so I'm staying late.
Und das ist ein Preis, nach dem Preis. Okay. Huh? Nee, nicht Vegas, but okay. V'zeu hatam asher. I wanted to finish the Perek. I always like to finish a Perek, right?
So who's stopping you?
V'zeu hatam asher rotzen shelet al hataynu ve'en hataynu shelet al harotzen. Now goes a new thing now.
He's basically...
This is the reason that the rotzen is shelet, dominates over. How would you say shelet? Is there another word? Is domineers, rules over pleasure, and pleasure does not rule over rotzen.
Sway.
Yeah. Dihine atainug ein bi cholte l'shanes l'rutza l'leiretza. Ein l'leiretza l'reitzah. L'shanes here I'm editing. Wow. Tainug cannot change from someone that wants something to shouldn't want it. L'reitzah. Ein l'leiretza l'reitzah. Or if he doesn't want it, to want it. Well, let's finish. Don't think so much. I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, why not? If you have pleasure, you should want it.
I'm thinking the other way around.
Oh.
There are certain things that when the person experiences them or thinks about them, they so sap the person out of his tainug atzmi that he doesn't want to even be near such a thing because they so drain him of his tainug atzmi.
But listen. Let me train you something. And this is my training of years of listening to Chazar, doing the Binga Chazar. Don't process it. I would wait till at least you just finish the machshava, because then.
For the second time, I wouldn't have to process it the first time.
No. But so that's why you do it patiently. I mean, I would always you read Vazog the Rebbe, and then you start hovering what it means. I'm not criticizing you. I'm just telling you that because sometimes your processing already like somewhat contaminates the nekuda. If you know what I mean? Because you may be right, may be wrong. And then you have to go spend more energy. And I'm talking about the emeth, like focusing energies. And then you have to spend more energy undoing what you first processed. It's like listening to somebody. So if you're not patient, you don't wait they finish. Just like up and the person says, by the way, I didn't mean what you think I meant. Oh, so now you have to go and rechange everything. So tell me what you really said.
Even the Mecham Mikra waits to Rashi till the next.
I remember the first time I worked with a web developer like 15 years ago. He says it's like carpentry. Measure twice, cut once. So I said, what is that? He says, everybody measures once and cuts more than twice. Because they didn't measure properly. Rechen alzeis, then cut. Don't start cutting before you measure it properly. It comes to maskanas, and then you cut it, then you have to connect it back. A bissel geduld, that's all. He's giving example. Emes is a greater chacham. And he enjoys, he loves seichel, ideas. He loves muskolos, he loves ideas. He has great pleasure from ideas. Which muskolos does he want? Rak muskolos the kedusha be'esek ateiru v'yidiyas alakus. The muskolos that he wants are only kedusha dika ones, holy ideas. When he learns in Torah, understanding elokus, getlachkeit. Umuskolos acheres she'enam elokus. Sounds like you, Meisha, doesn't it? Huh? Can't call Ev's muskolos. Nor muskolos the kedusha. It's a pretty strong requirement. Muskolos acheres she'enam elokus. And other type of ideas that are not elokus, b'frat masha yochel lehavel lehepach melokus, chas v'shalom, missing ourselves there. Ein reitze b'hem klal u'klal. Er will sein ganze nicht. He doesn't want them all together. V'ima yesh yedei sheyesh b'hem seichlim amukim. This is an interesting piece. I never saw this in the Maimah. Even though he knows that even the hepach elokus is dot tifa seichel. We're not talking about shtusim. Yeshli be'etzem tainug godel bin yonim sichlim, and there's the chamens v'sadach tainug from yonim sichlim. The chacham amita inishli b'muskolos godel v'otzem eid, because a true chacham, the pleasure in ideas is godel v'otzem eid, is made a pleasure. Lo yel kol zel liyos lechaz v'shalom rotzen lezeh. So despite the fact that Ebez nicht kein chacham and will nicht the chachmas andere chachmas and nicht kein kunst. He doesn't have pleasure in the first place. But there is a chacham that the nature of him is to have pleasure in ideas. But since it's not kedusha, lo yeyos et God nicht helfen. He'll never have a will in that type of muskolos. I don't know who the Rebbe Rashab's talking to. He's talking to himself, I guess.
Not he'll never have a will.
Not never. Lo yeyel kol zeh et God nicht helfen. It won't help. That should have chaz v'shalom arotzen. Not never. Yeah, he doesn't say the word never. He says that it doesn't help. It doesn't matter how deep those seichel is and
how deep the tiny
right.
How deep the tiny is.
Right. Why is that? Because his rotzen is elokus. Ayah ha-tainuk from seichel. It doesn't matter. Tainuk will not change his rotzen. That's the key. The kol mashu hepach melokus einu reitze b'shum efen.
Tainug, and he won't be able to deny and say, I don't have tainug from sichlim, from not to.
Right, exactly.
He denies that, he's a liar.
Correct. And nevertheless, that's why you have to make sure. That's why the case has to be about a person that has a be'etzem tainug. That's why he added the Maimon HaMuzgar. He must have be'etzem tainug from seichel, or else there's no raya.
And yet he doesn't want it.
Okay. So do you know such a person? Okay, fine. That's interesting. I would argue that such a person is not just his rotzen. He's such a takif, nelikus. It's not just that the rotzen is there. You know, the Rebbe Rashab is making like it's simple. A person who really has tainug and seichel is going to be very much tempted to see seichel.
He's tempted too.
So what stops him from doing it? The likus or the rotzen? What stops him?
The rotzen.
Yeah, but it's because the holy man. That's why.
Was ist starker? Rotzen zu sehen.
Rotzen zu tiny.
Dort the rotzen and tainug.
is a lot stronger than seichel.
Rotzen und seichel.
Es wenn sich wenn. Sonst wo man redt. Some rotzen bechlal is stronger than seichel. Araya people do things all the time that are not seichel.
At the same time, rotzen is not as plinius as chas seichel, so a person can sometimes go against his own rotzen because.
Look, you let's put it this way. The truth is, it's not so simple because not just rotzen. If a person has a taiva for something and all the seichel in the world says it's dangerous and it's not good for you, remember the midas are also in
That's
play.
not it. The rotzen to live is more than the rotzen for the taiva.
Fine, okay, but a person's midas here also comes. But anyway, let's go here. Rotzen and tainug. Okay, lo yel. B'shum even vilnish. U'kamoy came lo yishtana. Okay, that's a raya. From that tainug will not change lo reitza to reitza. But vilnish, something that's not a lakus. It doesn't matter how much tainug there is. It doesn't matter that he's a person that is be'etzem wants has tainug and seichel. Garnished helfen. Bottom line is he will not change. So we see from this.
Tainug won't sway the lo reitza to reitza.
Right, exactly. The tainug will not sway. It's not shelit of from rots. Okay. U'kamoy came. Now he goes the other way around. Lo yishtana mereitza lo reitza. He also will not change from wanting something to suddenly not wanting it.
I have a question. What does it mean? Should he doesn't do it? Does it change that he doesn't have time to get in Yarim the Hypochelikus?
No, you'd say that if Tainug was sheilt al rotzen, the fact that a person who's be'etzim achochem and has pleasure in seichel, that tainug is going to change the rotzen. That's what it means. It would change the rotzen. So in the beginning, he didn't want something hepachachus, but the tainug is more powerful.
In other words, his life is a constant iskafia. The fact that he's involved in Yali Likus.
And I mean, he's just bringing the Saraya. Listen, let's.
But it doesn't change. It's sholet. It's sholet. That means he controls it, basically.
Like an authority. It's an
authority, but it doesn't change that it doesn't have it.
Correct.
Oh yeah. But that's fine. That's all right.
You just said the person definitely has time in young scholars that are not kedusha.
My question is, how does he know that's not kedusha until he hears it? The seichel shabbat.
Because you're thinking.
I would test the water. Okay, but that's not. We're not talking about. Okay, that's another story. But fine, let's go now the other way. And the same thing. If you want something, the tainug is not going to change it. They're not wanting it. For who? The rotzen atzmi of neshamas Yisrael to get lachkeit loy nishtana v'loy nishapach la'elam gam beribui tainugim hagashmim. No matter how many tainugim gashmim, many physical pleasures will not change and will not transform the rotzen atzmi from neshamas Yisrael nalakus. Because Lina hat gesagt, ja? Sie ist geworden früher geworden a Freier, der noch geworden abgekehrt Sefarkert. Right, okay. But fine. וכמוש כוסף מים רבים, der Riber des Zenes v'tay v'zoros lo yuchel lichvis ha'ava v'arotzen atzmi. מים רבים lo yuchel lichavis ha'ava. She's teaching מים rabim. מים rabim is the many water, the many waters. The ribuy retzenis v'tay v'zoros. All these, the many wills and strange and inappropriate, foreign, alien taivas desires. Lo yuchlu, they cannot quench. They cannot extinguish rather. Ha'ava v'arotzna atzmi, the love and rotzna atzmi. So it teaches Mayim Ram Lechel. Mayim Rabim is not Taigas Aparnasa here, but Mayim Rabim is the Taich Ribu Ritzenis. So all these Mayim of the Welt and all its Taivas and all the Ritzenis cannot extinguish the Ava, the Rotzen Atzmi, the love and the Atzmi is the essential Rotzen of Neshamas Yisrael and Elikus.
Get to the example.
Yeah. Well, Kamosh on the Roim Gam Bekal Shebekalim Hamushkoim Rachmon al-Islam Beribui Taivas V'Tainugim Gashmim, like we see even by Kal Shebekalim. How do you translate Kal Shebekalim? The light of the light. But that Kal Shebekalim means
figure of speech.
Yeah.
It's
Nicht the schwere Menschen, the leichte Menschen. It means not the verfrumte, nicht the verfrumte. Yeah, Kal Shebekalim. It's an interesting expression, Kal Shebekalim, like Am Ha'aretz. All it means is a nation of the land. But
I'm wondering where Kal Shebekalim comes from. Is it a Talmudic term?
That's another question. So even these people, Hamushkoim, they seien reingezunken, reingetan, Rachmana litzlan, Ribui Taivas v'Tainugim Gashmi. In a deluge, Ribui, many desires and pleasures, physical pleasures. In Lepomim, K'moi bezman ha-simcha kahai gavne. At times, like in time of a simcha, similar. Harihem eskarvim liyirei elikim. They become close to Yir Elikim. Menschen was haben made of our neighbors and medabrim b'shvachi shel Yir Elikim b'kim ha-mitzvahs, and they speak about the shvachim. This is very interesting how he's explaining it. He's not saying that they become from. They talk about. They admire. They talk about the shvachim. How do you say shvachim?
Praise.
The praise. Yeah, the shvach of Yir Elikim and kim ha-mitzvahs. Ve'ech shegam hu ritzeinei b'zeh, and also how he wants it. Over then, he has Meniz V'Kuvim. It almost sounds like he's talking about a specific event or something. Okay, so you see that even a person like that, Kal Shebekalim, also certain times how they have that gefil. The kolza in a sheker benafshe, and this is not a sheker benafshe. It's nishkin sheker. It's nishkin false shemais. It's not some like false hypocrisy or something. The emesu sheretz b'alakus, because the truth is avil alakus. He wants alakus. Because as we said before, He's Aid, and Neshama. And Neshama has a Ratzon Atzmi in a Lukus. The Ima Yesha Nishke V'nevad Me'ed. And even though he became submerged and very much lost in his Taivus, in other words, Mekom Mokim Yeshne Bay, he still has that Ratzon Atzmi. Oh, okay, that's good. So we see from this that he can make from Reitza to Ein Reitza, no matter how many Tainugim there are. The interesting thing is that I'm a Zet as a Tutach Yed Tainugim. So the real Pnimi is
the nail to
it's like the Rambam, like the Rebbe brings from the Rambam. That he has pleasures. I see we can't win. So I mean, the Chedi could argue. I'm just saying a klotz kasha. Forget. Im Zetas Taivus Elam has got him to go away from it. So doch the Tainugim und doch Yegimach. But the Rebbe doesn't. He sees that by Primis bleibt es and by Simcha kommt es Sareis. Because if it really changed, then he should never have any Sederus. In other words, that's how he sees it. Like there was when they said the Satmar and the Rebbe as Philippish Yisrael is Malay Mitzvahs Kerimen. So the Satmar is geteicht as a Philip as Mitzvahs Kerimen is a Nachal Peish Yisrael. And the Rebbe teiched like Bapashtas a Philip Peish Yisrael is a Malay Mitzvahs Kerimen. It's a two-way street.
In other words, his kasha was the Sabbath kasha was how can you still call him Mother Mrs. Peshay Yisrael? How can you say he's Mother Mrs. Gerimen?
Right.
And the Rebbe says, my kasha is how can you call him Peshay Yisrael? It's the Mother Mrs. Gerimen.
You know, I heard a story, I just heard it recently. Someone said something in shul about Madoff. So someone said when Robert Maxwell, remember him? When he committed suicide, whatever, he jumped off his boat. So he was a wealthy Jew. So who told me the story? That Nachman Sudak told him that they told the Rebbe. So the Rebbe said, as what he said, the Gemara Zagdach, as Rev Gamvi Yisrael him. This steht in Gemara. It's talking about Etz Yisrael. That Rev Ganovim Etz Yisrael are Jews. So Rev Gamvi Yisrael him is doch mit der Welt nutzen as most Rev Gamvi Yisrael. So the Rebbe says Rev Gamvi Philip Rube Zaganef is in the Nachal Yisrael. As the Rebbe geteicht. Tarket. Rev Gamvi Yisrael him. You don't say Rev Yisrael Gamvi him. It says Rev Gamvi Yisrael.
What does the Gemara mean, the Pashas?
The Pasha is that in Etz Yisrael, the Rev Ganovim are Jews.
That in Eretz Yisrael, Rev Ganovim are Jews?
Yeah.
Rev Ganovim Yisrael, because it's a Rev population.
Right, exactly. It's like a negative thing in a way. Then someone said, who said, I think from Tzvi Greenwald told me, that, yeah, Meiredik. This Israeli writer came to Simchas Tishrei to the Lubavitch, to the Rebbe, here. You know, and they came to see him, I write about it, etc. And he went to Yechidus, just trying to remember. Oh, no, not Yechidus, he came by Lekach. A second, I have to step back. There was a guy called, he was the Communist Party in Knesset. His name was Vilner, Mayor Vilner. One of these real, like, anti-Semitic, you have sexier types. A communist. He was a communist. He would always talk for Russia. In the 1950s.
Socialist.
As a communist Jew. Yeah. Anyway, so he probably paid by Russia. And people hated him because Edgar Kegen, so Kegen Eden, talked about for Stalin, pro-Stalin, solche Sachen. So he came and somebody stabbed him. That he said something once, and they stabbed him. So this writer, who came from the Rebbe for Tishrei, listen to this. He wrote an article, and he said the guy made one mistake when he stabbed him. He should have used a longer knife, and he should have turned it. I didn't think he should have. Because he was hated. So, Anyway, he went by Lekach, and the Rebbe says to him, Nicht das schreiben auf Aiden. That's what the Rebbe said. So he said to the Rebbe, Haza'id, Ich Aid Arosh. So the Rebbe said, Was Aid is with me reden Sukkos. So he left. Sukkos comes, Chalameid. He goes to Chadakah. He says, the Rebbe said, because it was a Lekach. The Rebbe said, Nicht jetzt die Zeit, mit reden Sukkos, was Aid is. So he tells Chadakov that the Rebbe told him that, and he wants to go in to hear Vasa'id. I heard the story. It's made a dikkamai. So listen to this. So Chadakov says, Sukkot, nobody goes into the Rebbe. Sukkot Chalamed, there's no Yechidus. You want to come in after Tishrei? You could come after Tishrei and make an appointment with today. This is late Chofs, I think Chof Ches, Chof Tes, something like that. He argued back and forth, and I don't know if Chadakov checked, but bottom line is he's not going to know Yechidus. Okay, fine. But he was there Sukkot. He comes in, the Rebbe used to Fabreing the second day of Sukkot. He comes in, when he walks into the Sukkah, in the middle of Fabreing, he suddenly, the Rebbe saw him. He could see the Rebbe saw him. So the Rebbe says, was is Ayin? And started talking about Milei Mitzvahs Kerimen. Ayin is a Rotznatz Mitzvah the Meiberschen, Chelik Elekamal, nicht will sein Organisten von aller Kurs. Jeder Eid, I feel as Avas in Ganzen, he didn't mention by name, but I feel as Avas in Ganzen, the Chetzenis, I know the Aces. That was the story. You get the Meise, huh? Nicht as schreiben auf Ayin. That's what the Rebbe said. Anyway, yeah. So that's what he's saying here. That the Ratzon can never change, no matter what Tainugim and Taivas. That's good. So there's hope for all of us. No? So let me get a bit weiter. We'll finish the Perek already. Your delinquency is forgiven. Okay. V'zeu de la'asid. Und das v'zeu de la'asid, and this is what la'asid love. Sheikh kumen. Kasher yitaka b'shefer galu ba evden be'eretz asher, which by the way the Rabbi used. It's interesting. This is the pasuk that Rabbi used many times in Tov Chav Zayin after the 6-day war. This is the pasuk that Rabbi used. That the 6-day war was a yitaka b'shefer gadol. So again we're going to bow evden be'eretz asher and a dochen be'eretz Mitzrayim. And then the Rebbe cried, it was Kislev next year, Chav Ches, that part was not done. So this is what it means, La'asid ben defense of blood, the Shefer Gadol.
In other words,
Evdim be'eretz Asher. I feel there was a falon, and I remember the Rebbe said then, Evdim be'eretz Asher, I remember this, Nedochen be'eretz Mitzrayim. Bazeh steht Eretz Asher, steht Evdim, falon. Eretz Mitzrayim steht in Dachen, angestuft. It's nicht so weit. So the Rebbe said, well, there are two types of Neshenis. The Neshenis from Mitzrayim, from Anias, is not in Dachen, all the years. But the Neshenis from Asher, Ashiras, and comfort, that in Falon. And it's very hard to find somebody. He said about our generation, because we have everything, the comfort of our time, the Neshenis are sach tiefer wie the Neshenim from Mitzrayim. You know, when unsere Eltern were suffering. Shlomo Shashamir wrote an Algemein a few years ago that Mashiach came out of Pesach, and he saw the Jews were in hotels, so he went back. They were busy. They were happy. It's Meglach. I have a guy who comes to my class. He's a very sharp guy. He's not so. He wasn't born from, but he's a very interesting character. Very sharp. As that he says to me, I think every time they open up a new kosher pizza shop, it's one step farther from Mashiach. That's what he tells me. He says God sees they're very comfortable. The Jews are getting very comfortable in kosher. The place, he says they don't have anything missed. They're not missing anything. Those exclamation, yeah. Even so sein gebenched with Ashiras, and we're not talking about that.
I don't think there's ever so much Torah there was, and so much Zdaka, and I think in the 50s and the 60s, Ashiras was a very big Messiah, but I think the world changed. I think that Rabbi changed that. Keicha Torah changed it.
No, we don't know. Ashiras is a bracha, for sure.
I'm saying that where people got lost in the need from Ashiras, today just the opposite. Today, als was met is that Aisha, he built another building, he's buying another ambulance, the Aisha wants covered, and just I think it turned just the opposite. You became an Aisha.
It's better than those that covered one Aisha,
Yes, better than the covered one.
Yeah, but still, he's talking about Central America. I mean, the 90%. You're talking about the percent that are from. But how much of the percent?
And then, first of all,
the world changed. The world changed. A
little bit.
No. First of all,
tomorrow morning you made $10 million. The first thing you're going to think how to give away $9 million. If you're going to give away the $9 million, maybe you'll give away $4 million. You give away $3 million.
Which part? I'm into the second part or the first part?
You understand? many. That's that is embedded.
How many Jews are lost, Mesha?
How many Jews are? We have a problem.
No. What's that? I don't see.
Because of assimilation. Because
it's not a contradiction.
Not a contradiction.
It's not a contradiction. I hear what you're saying. The thing is, I'm talking much more the Golas Panimi. Nice mitzvahs.
Are you talking about Golas Panimi? Is
We need a little chassidus, basically.
the Golas Panimi is a very hard Golas in the sense because people are yearning for leadership. So we have everything on an iPod. We have everything Torah. There's never so much studying. People without beards, we could sit on a long island track and learn Daf Yomi. They give tzedakah.
Let me just finish.
Okay.
Let's just finish the Perek. Okay, let's just finish the Perek. So that's because you're talking about even the Beres Asher, Shubchin hat Tainug, the Gamma, Evdim Rachman Islam, the Tainugim, Ashur is Lashon Tainug, Ashur. The Chola, the Gamma, Evdim Rachman Islam, the Tainugim, Agashmim, Yavoyu, Kashe Yigira, Lakus. And that's what it means, you talk about Shefa God, that even though there's a Falon given in Tainug, in pleasure, and the pleasures of this world, even they will come when there's Gili Elakus. So we see from this, because Tainug is not Shelet, it doesn't rule and dominate over Rotzen to change it. On the other hand, Harotzen Shelet ala Tainug l'shanesei. Me'enig l'tzar u'mitzar le'enig. So Tainug does not change Rotzen not one way, not the other way. You can't change someone who doesn't want something to want. You can't change someone who wants something to not want. But the Rotzen can change. You should have either pleasure or pain, or from pain to pleasure. Maybe inyan hasigufim, the sigufim, which is like the physical, the shurim, pains that a person has, that people, amol, not in the time before the Baal Shem Tov, huh?
Sigufim is pain that the person brings on himself.
Right, self-inflicted. That amol, the far Baal Shem Tov. The ima yesh tzar lenefesh, harihu le'enig mipnei shereitzu ma'ed b'tikun nafshei. A person who self-inflicts pain on themselves, even though it's a tzar, but he has pleasure because he wants a tikkun nefesh. Like the din that there's a heter to have a tainis cholm b'Shabbos pnei shu einig lei. Shabbos you're not allowed to fast. Shabbos is Shabbos einig Shabbos. But if a person had a bad dream and wants to have a tainis cholm, not a bad dream. Tainis cholm is that there's that he does a tainis because of a bad dream, and he has a lot of tzar from it. So on Shabbos, you're allowed to fast, so to speak, because it's a tikkun for him, because he has pleasure from it. That's the din. So even though fasting is not pleasure, but for a person who feels that he needs it for a particular tikkun, you're allowed to fast on Shabbos because einig lei erot einig. So you see, he suddenly changed something that was sad into einig. Now he's going using the same example before. Someone mitzad is the Eitzim HaRotzen, mitzad the intense rotzen for Getlichkeit, harihu moyez b'chol ha'tanugim ha'gashmi. He despises all physical pleasures. U'kamei sonei ra, tzadikim gemurim. Like the hate for ra, for evil, that tzadikim gemurim have. Like he speaks in Tanya, Perek Yud. V'chein b'bal tshuva, shameyez b'chol inyonei elam hazeh. Also about tshuva that despises al gans elam hazeh, inyonei elam hazeh. This world, things of this world. Umoyez b'chayav, and he despises his life, which means hainu shemoyez b'chaya akedim. He despises the life that he had earlier before he did tshuva. Shahi b'tainugim agashmim, a life that was immersed in physical pleasures. Harihu umoyez b'hem b'tachlis hamiyos. He despises them in the ultimate despicability. U'kumeshukasov kol zeh barichus b'rada yom tov sherosh hashanah reis samarvov. Like all this is barichus at length and samach vov. V'arei ha'enig hu l'mayla ma'rotzen. It's not understood. Rotzen, enig is doch hecha for rotzen. Mepnei ma rotzen shelet ba'enig. So why is it that the rotzen is shelet and controls the pleasure? Achzel mepnei sha'rotzen shu b'chinas merutze v'hamshach nimshach ha'atzmi shalei. And that's because the reason is because Ratzon that is drawn to something, with that drawing is drawing the Atzmius, the essence of the person. Is Helen, as we said earlier. Pleasure, which is Helen, what's Nimshach is only a reflection, not the Atzmius. So Einig has a higher level be'etzem in himself. But in what comes out, it's only a reflection. Ratzon is the opposite. It's lower than Einig be'etzem, but what comes out is the Atzmius of the person. And that's why Ratzon has the power to control and dominate over pleasure, and pleasure is only a reflection, cannot control Einig. Ratzon, I'm sorry. Okay. And therefore, because Ratzon is Atzmi and Tainuk is not a cause for it, and their essence, they're different, they're opposites. That's why that what comes from Ratzon, from Tainuk, is only a reflection. Because the close Hamshachas Tainuk, or pleasure, is only a reflection, and especially that in the Ratzon, which is opposite of it. That's why in Ratzon you only have a reflection and ispashtus of Einik, pleasure. The only thing is that the Ratzon Atzmi, there's also Tainug Atzmi, because they both come from Atzmus. So v'zeh yunachas ruach l'fanei shamat v'naseh tzeni l'fanei dafke b'chinas Atzmus kanal perek uf tzaddigim. Wow. Basically, what he's just said is very complicated.
So there's a place where they both meet.
Yeah, we said earlier that Ratzon, you can have Einig from Ratzon, from something you want. But the Einig is only Makif and Ha'ara. That's really what he's leading up to. The Einig is only Makif and Ha'ara. Whereas, as he's going to say in the next Perek, Chochmah, on the other hand, is not Atzmus HaNefesh, but what it takes from the Einig is Inyan Pnimi and Atzmi. You know, Pnimisaba, Pnimisatik, that Chochmah and Atik. Chochmah, the Meches Tima is connected to the Pnimis of Atik. That's really what he's leading up to. But this needs to be very clearly understood. What he's established here is that Ratzon is stronger than Einig, only because you only have Ha'ara of Einig. What? I don't get that. What does that have to do with it? He says Einig is higher than Ratzon. So then l'cheira, why is Einig not control the Ratzon? How is it possible that a person can want something and that should change the Einig to Tzar and Tzar to Einig? His answer is because Einig is Ha'ara and Ratzon is Atzim. But the Einig in the Etzim, the Einig the person wants, man darf es durchtrachten. Das darf man durchharven ein bisschen und verstehen gut. So we'll stop here.
Yeah.
Ayin Beis, und da verstehen this last piece here with the Ha'ara
Yeah,
and the Etzim, und darf es durchtrachten und durchmisbeinen sein sich.
Shkayach. This is a refreshing. It really is. I missed that. It wasn't here for 2 weeks.
Listen.